Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I'm Will, and I'm joined by my co-host over here, the Grease. Say hello, Grease.
Hey, buddy. I haven't seen you in a hot minute. And let me go ahead and tell you what's hot.
What?
Well, yeah, you're pretty.
Yeah.
I mean,
first show of 2024.
Listen,
New year.
I stumble when I think about you.
I bet you do. You get nervous and you
fall
trip.
flat on my face in love.
Yeah. All right. So do you remember shows like Home Improvement or like Saved by the Bell?
Like Wilson peeking over the fence?
Yeah, like old school shows. They always had they had a very special episode. It was always something like really dramatic for the shows that were normally
Saved by the Bell with Jesse.
Yeah, with the caffeine pills.
I'm so excited. I just can't hide it or so. Like what she said. And I'm so excited. I'm so scared.
Yeah. It was a very special episode.
Yeah,
they were dealing with a serious topic like addiction to caffeine pills, or like someone has appendicitis or something like that. Like it could be very, very like dire, and then everything's fine by the end of it.
Right. I had appendicitis.
Did you? Did you get it removed?
Yes. You don't remember that? I go to the urgent care. And like they almost had to call an ambulance.
Oh yeah,
they
had a lot of things.
They called the hospital, and we zoomed over there, and there was no triage.
Right, they just took you right in, cut you open,
whoop, right on in there.
Yeah, that seems on
dude.
brand.
Triage is like a scam.
Oh yeah, that's just to make you wait longer.
Right. It makes you think that it's okay that you're about to spend like $5,000.
Right.
Like, well, I got my money's worth. I was there a while.
Yeah, I was in triage.
Right.
All right, so I'm going to open. I brought us. This is all that to say. This is a very special podcast. Like this is our addicted to caffeine pills episode, or something very. Because we're going to deal with something a little bit more heavy than we normally would on the show. Because we're normally lighthearted, whimsical, and yelling at each other.
And we're not talking about high proof.
No.
Not heavy whiskey, thick whiskey, viscous whiskey.
We're going to talk about real life, some things that have gone on over the past couple years, and I thought, since we're just having a real chat, just two dudes hanging out, that I'd bring over something really good to pour. So we're going to open up a Kentucky Owl Batch 8 I've had stashed away for a special occasion.
Whoa.
So I thought we could just have something good, pour us up. When you have a serious conversation, you normally want to just have something good and serious whiskey to go along with it, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to open this bad boy up.
Thank you.
But
you know how much I love this bottle.
I know. I thought this was an appropriate time to... Oh, no. Cork broke.
What? That... Dixon's gonna. He knows.
He hates the glue. There we go.
It was one of the things that didn't work out with the Russians.
Yeah. So we're gonna pour us up some Kentucky Owl Batch 8, and we're gonna get into a talk because if you've been around the podcast for any amount of time, we've been doing this. It'll be 8 years, I believe, in May, and the last 2 years have been a little different, a little less consistent, a little different. And really the one big elephant in the room was winter just over a year ago in 2022, that you took a little bit of a hiatus. You took a couple months off from the podcast, and we never really addressed why. We
weren't in a situation to.
Yeah, we just talked about that. Hey, Matt's okay, as we said, because we were being serious. The Grease is okay,
right. But
he had like a family emergency or family matters that he needed to attest to. We clarified you and Lauren were fine. Your family life was fine, but just that there were some things that you needed to take a step back and handle. Some of our closer podcasters that we've had, one-on-one time with, maybe know a little bit more. Some maybe don't, but we thought that kicking off a new year, this is probably the best time to just, be transparent, let people know what has gone on in the last couple of years, because we know people care. And so we're just going to be real, and we're just going to talk about what kind of got to that point where you needed to take a little break, and why maybe it's been a little bit inconsistent over the last year as we've tried to figure things out. And so I want to first just hand it over to you. Like, what kind of is the backstory of that year leading up to, I guess it was October or November of 2022, where you took some time off from the show.
Yeah. So a year before that, I was seeing my primary care physician. There was a lack of memory. There was a lack of focus. I was kind of off. And so I went in there saying, I've always thought I had ADD. Like, what can I take to maybe address that?
Sure.
And I was prescribed something that was a very powerful stimulant. And through taking that, I went into what is called mania. And that is on the mental health spectrum of things. And during the next 3 or 4 weeks, I felt amazing.
Yeah. Right.
I felt, if anybody knows, about what mania is in the bipolar world, I have a lot of confidence. I have a lot of the answers. If you don't agree with me, I will go around you. I will, spare no expense for my agenda. And that was it manifested due to this medication that really sends you kind of up like that. And, through back and forth conversations with my primary care physician, I was referred to a psychiatrist. I go to a psychiatrist and I am told that, they are very sure I have bipolar disorder type 1. And type 1 being that I am less depressed at times, but more on the manic side. Manic for me looked a lot like, I was on the beach one day and drafted up, bullet points for a book and a series. And
Lord knows you've never even read a book.
I don't even know how to read one.
Right.
But
you were writing too.
In that moment, I did have the wherewithal to, loosely line up a ghostwriter for it. Because I was like,
I'm surprised you know the term ghostwriter.
Well,
to be honest.
they use that term.
Oh, okay.
Because I was talking to them about this, because I knew they were a writer, and be like, man, if you need me to ghostwrite this for you, I will. I was like, okay. What is
I like the sound of
what does that mean? Does that mean you take a really big cut, or are we talking about like, is this free? I'm just kidding. But yeah, and just odd things like that. I pitched 500 ideas to Will. I go back home. I'm still on that medication during this time when I was on break. And just a really funny thing. When I got back, I was still on that medication and we were taking family portraits. And I remember my family saying, hurry up, let's go, whatever. And I'm on the phone with Daniel Shook talking about the divisional shift for the first time. And so there was no room for not believing in me and not taking me seriously. Because if you did that, I'm just going to go around you. I'm going to avoid you. I don't care. I'm going to leave you in the dark because this is what this looks like. And so I was diagnosed bipolar type 1, and I got off that medication immediately. It was okay to stop that cold turkey. And over the next few months, it was just, some ups and downs and all arounds, and us trying to figure out medication for me, trying to get me balanced. And then about 9 months later, it just got really heavy. I was, think of it as like the higher you go, the harder you fall.
Bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Yeah, something like that. And and so it was just a really very fragile time. And so I was able to take a leave of absence from work. Will kind of made this an easy hey buddy, just release your grip on this. And he took over that. And then some other things that I had my hands in, it was relinquished and all of that. Some of y'all might remember too, like Whiskey Weekend, we stopped it and just did the VIP because that happened to be almost done at that point. And so we just made the call to still do that. Looking back, I'm really glad because it was something for me to look forward to, and I'm really thankful to Will in that because Will, he's dealing with this whole scenario way more in the dark than I am. And he was so respectful and caring and wanting the best for me, even to the point of telling me like, no, like we're not doing this or we're not doing that. And it was out of protection and love. It wasn't, anything else. And now, in that moment, I don't necessarily feel that way. But looking back, I do. And, so transitioning out of Whiskey Weekend, which was an absolute blast. I had a really great time with people. I don't think anybody thought anything was off necessarily. Because I was on medications, but still it's just me trying to analyze myself and process. And there's some things that just kind of come to a head sometimes that you're like, yeah, that's a red flag for me. It's not just me being excited or, or have energy or charismatic or goofy. That's not it. There's other issues that surround that. And so, it was just a very difficult time, during that. And then even moving past that.
Well, and to speak to that for a little bit of where we got to that point was, you hadn't been back very long before Whiskey Weekend was happening. And to go back for the last couple of years, there's, especially if people have been around for a long time, there was differences in even the way that we interacted, and our forward-facing friendship looked a little differently. The mom and dad are fighting that people would say online, and like all those things started prior to even a diagnosis.
Yes.
And so it was a build up.
I went to the doctor because I wasn't well.
Right.
That's why you go to the doctor.
But what you thought it was and what you were initially treated for wasn't the full picture.
No.
And took it into overdrive. And so if people can imagine the forward facing tension that developed between us, the behind the scenes tension was obviously far greater. In many ways, we never stopped being friends. Our relationship wasn't shattered or like a band is breaking up and we weren't, the Gallagher brothers.
I gave Will every possibility, by the way, to bail. I was like, this is all I can give you at this point.
But even at Whiskey Weekend, like there were people saw tension between us. People saw a fight between us publicly, that was not the normal thing that you would expect out of us. And that's where, especially for you, who's been the fun-loving, happy-go-lucky guy for especially forward-facing for so long, the tension there was very palpable for, I think, even people watching or interacting with us to some degree. And I think that's where, for one, that's one major reason that even telling our listeners and our friends, this little bit of a story, is important as well. Yeah. And so that was, we got there and we got through it. But this past year, and then I'll let you continue more with things, have been a lot of trying to figure out who and what we are going forward. And we're not abandoning this, we're not, we've had many discussions of what we're going to do and what the future looks like. And that's part of what this discussion is even tonight, is just being real. I think that's one thing that we may not have been the best at many things, but we've always been pretty dadgum real with people about who we are and what we're into and what we care about. And so I think that this is a part of that continual rebirth, renewal, and rediscovery of what we are and what the podcast is a discussion like this and just laying it out. It's like, if you've been wondering, like, why is it sporadic during this year? It's been figuring it out.
Yeah.
So
yes. And trying to figure it out when I'm healthy and not healthy.
Right.
You know, especially throwing in the mix of work and family and, you know, especially just dealing with the fact that, you know, we're not as present on media as we once were, and stuff like that. You have to understand that last, you know, or 2 years ago, you know, when I finally was diagnosed, with bipolar type 1, prior to that, you know, the stigma that I had in my mind was, if you have a mental illness, you are crazy. And I would use words like bipolar in a way of they're acting off the rails, you know, and not even knowing what that is really. In fact, Will is the one that told me and told my wife that I think you're manic. Well, you didn't tell Lauren that. You told me that. And I was pretty upset because I didn't understand what that word was. Mm-hmm. And I processed that with Lauren, and Lauren the next day, came to me. You know, she saw how fragile I was in that moment, how upset I was. She didn't want to do it then, but the next day she was like, "Can I just read you the definition?" And I just went into full blown laughter in that moment, as she's reading it, because it was so specific, like 90 or 999 things out of 1,000 things on there was me to a T. There was no me backing out of that and saying no.
Well, and you brought up that, you know, you had these ideas, and if someone wasn't on board, you were going to go around them, and that week that you were on vacation and were increasingly coming up with the greatest ideas in the world, like fail safe, greatest ideas.
You got to do this, Will. I'm telling you, man.
One was, can I share what one of the ideas was that was like the last?
I may or
one?
may not remember it.
It was that we were going to quit our jobs, move our families to the beach.
Yes.
And we were going to film a pilot for Netflix.
Yes.
And it was guaranteed it would be a success.
Yes.
And
yes.
It wasn't that you had this idea. It was that when I said, that's a fun idea, and wasn't fully on board, you were frustrated with me. Right. That I wouldn't drop my life and move to the beach and film a pilot for Netflix.
Dude, we just get a hut with Wi-Fi, we'll be fine.
And so that was when I'm like, this is
odd.
His frustration at me not saying this, and I could tell how frustrated. I'm like, this isn't a thing. I can't rationally have this discussion. And it came down to, you had gotten back, we were supposed to record, and I said, we're not recording tomorrow until you and I talk in person, because I can't talk on text about this.
Right.
And that's when I said, you're acting manic. And that night, you and I were supposed to meet. It was a Sunday night.
Yeah.
And you had shown Lauren that message, and you were getting the girls to bed, and I saw my phone ringing from Lauren, and I got a cold sweat. I'm like, I'm about to get screamed at for being abusive, using I don't know what I'm like, this is not.
Well, you're going up against her husband.
Right.
Or
exactly.
you. Like,
yeah. And so I'm like, and she just said, can you please not come meet with Matt? Because he showed me what you wrote, and I just need to digest this and talk with him. And when you've said, and we'll get to some of the other things you're working on in a little bit, but you've said like how pivotal and instrumental and gracious and loving and such a foundation. And that's why, to some degree, when some people they were genuinely concerned, like, is his family okay? Like the little bit of me would like laugh and be like, they're great because of how great Lauren has been through this with you.
She's
just that was the wisdom to say, I'm going to step in here, and I know that this isn't going to take a trajectory that needs to continue. That I'm forever thankful, because our friendship is strong. It's continued. The
Lord
podcast
dude, what if you would have come?
I cannot fathom.
I don't even know,
because you were not in a place to hear anything other than yes.
100%. And I would only say yes.
Right.
Like the only word was yes. Yeah.
So that those things, and like I said, we're being real here. Like these are the levels that you and I haven't even really discussed of this to some degree.
And honestly, all of it is very blurry.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things that I don't like legit remember when we're talking and stuff. I can be like, oh yeah. Like I do remember that, but if you asked me something, I wouldn't have a clue. Yeah. And when she came to me and told me all that, and it was all that, transitioning into your bipolar, when all your life you've looked at mental illness a completely wrong way.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that because now I am, and I want you to accept me. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I was ignorant, and now I have knowledge.
Sure.
And so that's kind of the basis. And it completely upended me. And that was kind of the reasoning for just being all over the place. When you go from flippantly talking about something in a negative way, and then that's you.
Yeah.
It's like, what? And that was a matter of a 5-minute doctor's visit, And so it was very shocking to me, sent me into this, up and down season for a very long time. Well,
and I think you talked about it, and once again, this is alluding to things that we're going to also discuss because it's great what you're doing. But your buddy Shane, who you'll talk about a little bit more in a minute, but was he essentially asked you, like, the diagnosis that you're bipolar almost seemed worse than if you had been given a terminal diagnosis. Like you have brain cancer and you've got 6 weeks to live. To some degree, you could have probably wrapped your head around more logically.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
This is what that's a diagnosis you get. It is, very untreatable, and this is the end. Like there's
the outcome,
a more logical framework that you could have understood rather than here's what you have.
Right.
You'll never be cured. It's not something that's curable. It's something you treat.
Right.
And it's also trying to rework your entire worldview of how you've seen your life and how you question actions or thoughts and the taint that's put upon it. I did say taint. I'm sorry. The taint that's put upon it of if I'm excited, is this misbehavior? Mm-hmm. Am I not allowed to be happy and excited, or am I fearful that I'm going down this mania track where and the tug of war internally that immedially that you get that diagnosis and are starting.
Well, when you make that a norm to overanalyze, am I happy? Am I not? Am I excited? Am I not? Can I be goofy? Can I not? Now you're talking about like outside looking inward for myself. It's like, are you just shifting to depression?
Which to some degree early in your treatment, that was the effect it had on you.
It was.
Went from you being go, 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 everything I do is right, to withdrawn and depressed.
And I was dropping so many balls. I mean, I had my hand in a lot of different things, and it all, one of the two, there was a couple of things that I just still held on to that I was succeeding in, and that was, my regular job and my family. And I dropped some balls at my regular job. And it was kind of like, that's it. Like, I am just pissed at myself, and because I hadn't found my normal. I don't know what normal is. I still don't necessarily do. I feel really good right now. I feel focused, level-headed, clear. I actually am now on an ADD medication that's not a stimulant, and it's super helpful. So I do believe that I did need something like that.
Right.
But it
wasn't the full picture.
It was not the full picture by any means. And so, during the time off, I want to go back to that. But during my time off from work, by the way, super gracious, Will, super gracious, everybody involved. I had a great community around me. Text threads, people, not necessarily that I confided in, but just people that were just there. They know something was up, and they were there and reaching out, personal texts and stuff like that. Hey man, thinking about you today. Like that was really great. But I connected with a couple of my bandmates, and I went into
from high school.
From high school. Yeah. I've known these guys for 20 to 25 years, and we've been through a lot.
Not Wellwater, for those of you asking.
Well, so I was in a band, Wellwater, and he was in a band called Cloud 10.
No, who am I thinking of? Courtney. What band?
That was Fourth Day Band.
Yeah, Fourth Day Band. Not that band.
Yeah.
So Joey was in Wellwater, though. Wellwater was a good band.
Wellwater. Okay, so Wellwater was way better.
Yeah.
It was way better.
Fourth Day Band is the one where you professed your love for Courtney.
Yeah, like we played clubs and churches and events and all this other stuff. A good bit. Like we had some success.
Sorry, I had to.
It was the other band apparently just had one fan, and that was my cousin.
Yeah, number one fan.
But so during my absence from work, I go and see Shane. I reconnect with him. I say, "Hey man, it's so dumb. You've been in Nashville for 10 years. Why have we not hung out? Let's do it." And he's like, "Absolutely. When do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Tomorrow." Like, I'm off. And so we did. And, this is all just somewhat fresh. It's 9 months, 10 months later, but I'm still just a mess. I'm not doing research. I'm not doing whatever. I'm just pissed. I'm just like when I feel good, I feel great and everything is right. But then when everything's right, people are telling me stop. And then the other side of that, when I fall and I'm depressed, I want to stop. So all I hear is stop, and it's just, it was very discouraging. It was not in a great place. Well, for some weird reason, Shane comes out of his apartment complex to let me in. And he's like, "What's up, man?" He's like, "How are you doing? What's going on with you?" And I was just like, and this is such a bipolar condition, and is oversharing.
Sure.
And if
You've
anybody
never been
knows,
guilty of that.
right. If anybody knows, I overshare, appropriate or not.
You put videos of your mom peeing in a bathing suit on the internet.
On the internet. Well, that's not oversharing. That's trying to see shock value. But yes.
Okay.
And I go, I have bipolar disorder. And he was like, he just laughed at me for a second. He was like, are you serious? Like, did somebody tell you that I had bipolar disorder? And I was like, that's another thing too that I learned. When I first started this, I said, I'm bipolar. I'm bipolar. Shane's bipolar. All of this. No. You have an illness. You have bipolar disorder. You are not bipolar. And that was a healing moment for me too, you know, in a way. But that was a sidetrack. And so for the next 8 hours, we just talked about that. And I learned more in that than I did probably my entire 4 years in college. It was crazy. It was awesome. Really connected. Later on, I ended up going and visiting my buddy Joey, and we were going to record a song. You know, I was like, man, I just need to get away. Right. You know, I need you. I need something constant, you know, from my past that kind of seen me through a lot of different things. And two, I wanted to ask the questions like, have you seen this in me before?
Sure.
You know, like I'm trying to figure this out. Like, when did this start? How did this, whatever? I know it was triggered intensely by something. But you know, with the essentially methamphetamine, the stimulant. By the way, it was not that. It was prescribed, I promise. I don't necessarily want to share what it is so that, you know, whatever. But, so I went up there and we started recording a song, and then I'm just updating Shane. Like, we're buddies. He was in a different band, but we played together a lot. Like, we would play shows here together. We'd play shows like, you know, as a couple of bands. He came and played like some percussion and stuff for us one time. He might have even filled in for drums one time. I can't remember, but we recorded the song, just the music. And I was talking to Shane, and Shane was like, send it to me right now. I want to cut drums with it. And I was freaking out. I was like, because Shane's like a professional drummer.
Right, that's what he does.
Yeah,
he's an actual.
Yeah, like he's on the road with Thompson Station right now, which is, you know, a very reputable artist in the country genre here in Nashville. But in that moment, I felt excitement, you know, and I was like, what, you know, am I excited or am I manic or whatever? And I was manic during that period. I do remember that. And so I was trying to harness my excitement for this song. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm feeling like I'm in a band again. You know,
it's going to be a number one on the radio.
It's going to be number one on the radio. Yeah. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do that. Well, over the past year, it kind of manifested into this really beautiful story. And the outcome that lives right here, right now, is a very beautiful story. You know, the fact that we are friends, the fact that I have support system, that I was led to, you know, people that I loved at one point and now love even more again. You know, the fact that those people were in my life and that they were so close, and I had no idea they were dealing with any of this stuff too. It was just a perfect storm. And I can't help but to say just how thankful I am. You know, and I probably lightly confided into some other people that, you know, reached out, and I was, you know, in the whiskey world, you know, people were so nice. I didn't go into details, but they knew I was struggling, and I was thankful for them. And, you know, they kind of checked in with me and stuff like that. And this story is very beautiful. It's hard. It has been very hard. What does tomorrow look like? I don't know, but I think that there has been equipping. There has been wisdom that has grown. There has, you know, been transparency and vulnerability that help the people that surround you want and are able to give the best for you. Right. You know?
Well, and that takes me to a place as well where when we think about like what the podcast is, we've always said it's about the people, it's not about the whiskey, it's about the community, and all those cliches that we've used that have almost seemed trite when we say them now. But they're not, because I from how we had a bond and a friendship that was built through this that was unlike something we'd ever had before. And just the other people that are in our lives because of this, it proves that it isn't about the whiskey. That's something we like, that we have in common, that we're interested in, that we're curious about, that we enjoy. But the thing that really makes what we do what it is the fact that it's about loving people, loving other people, friendships, hanging out together, events. And I feel like I never want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like for what you went through, having a foundation, a structural framework of leaning on a community in a time of need, because we've been there for others of our friends.
Yeah.
We've needed our friends that as adults can be very, very hard to figure out. In this day and age, it can be very hard to figure that out when you're an adult. But I feel like
especially when
thankfulness,
especially when there's
community.
Phones,
Right.
There's distractions,
Right.
We're not hanging out,
Right.
Like a whiskey hangout right now. You actually meet in person and go do something. Right. It's circled on the daggum calendar,
Right.
A whiskey hangover Zoom. Yeah, I'll hop on. And there's not, and I'm not saying you can't build that over Zoom.
Sure.
But there is something about it just being personal, and we just don't get that right now. And so that can isolate, I don't feel good tonight, I'm not going to hop on that Zoom, and some of that distance and some of that silence is deafening, in that way. But I'm very fortunate. And I believe that better days are ahead, because every day I feel like I am progressing well. Because I'm understanding. I would always analyze my condition, but I would analyze it in a way that wasn't healthy, that would just send me to the other side.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, and you had mentioned that I believe it was your psychiatrist or someone that first described bipolar disorder as peaks and valleys, but when everyone's range of emotions are peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
But when you have bipolar, the peaks are very, very high and the valleys are very, very low.
Yeah. Well, type 2, you kind of live in the lows.
Okay.
And I live in the higher side. I might exist in what is called hypomania, which is kind of like this, everybody's on the spectrum. The spectrum is not just for different people,
everyone has good days and bad, highs and lows.
Yeah. Highs and lows for sure. But so type 1 is kind of above the line.
Yeah.
Majority, more percentage wise.
Right.
And then type 2 is kind of below that. Type 2 is very dark, can be very dark for people. And I just have that not consistently at all. Sure. You know what I'm saying? And so, but yeah, I mean, if you want to see one of the biggest manic episodes that I've ever had, watch round 1 of Matt Madness the first year.
Yep.
Watch that. Yeah.
Well, and I think for me, looking back with hindsight, and not even necessarily hindsight, but after that first round, I knew there was, I would have never said Matt has a mental illness or has bipolar disorder, but I knew something wasn't right.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on, what was odds are if you're heavy into whiskey, it could have been an alcohol dependency, but I knew there was something off and something was different about that moment that wasn't you. And that was what many people even said, that's not you.
Right.
And
they were right.
And
they were right. I just didn't. And I was offended.
Right. Because
I was offended that people said,
you're
why isn't that me?
I killed it.
I killed it.
Yeah.
I killed it. I was distracted by the chat because it was all about me.
Right.
I was like, oh, they said that. Oh, give me a break, freaking so-and-so. Like what? And people are trying to answer stuff and nobody can get a word in.
Right.
Like my wife.
So you're saying all of this is Matt Porter's fault.
It's
he
100%
triggered this.
Yeah. Matt Porter's huge trigger.
Yeah.
Huge trigger.
He's a stumbling block.
He's a smaller trigger now. He's lost a lot of weight.
Right.
But
he gave it to me.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, that was a peak in that moment as far as mania. So if you want to go and see that, I will tell you this: don't watch it for a train wreck reason. Watch it and just understand that was not in a healthy space for me. Yeah. And so, I get pits in my stomach about it, like outside looking in. I remember my wife the next day, she was like, hey, I watched it. And that was shocking. Like she had no idea who I was in that. And that's just been me trying with meds and therapy and all of this stuff, trying to decipher what's going on. I have to mention Natalie, our Natalie, Natalie. She was a great place to go to. And sometimes like I remember, possibly manic, and Will can attest to this. I will write tons of texts.
Aggressive text messaging. And so like I'll text Natalie and all of this, and she just helps me walk through it, understands. She's helped me with a lot of this, the putting names on things and lingo and stuff like that. It's not like I talk to her every day or every week or every month even, but it's been in very... She'll send you a bill.
Necessary. A pill?
A bill if it's that frequent.
I was about to say, I don't think she can prescribe.
I don't know if she can. She's got a PhD.
That's true. Yeah. I don't know how that works.
I don't either. Not an expert in that. I don't have a PhD in that.
Yeah, I know.
What I do want to get to though is that what you've done with those friends, not just write a song. Because one of the main reasons we wanted to bring this story to our listeners and our friends is something you brought up, that it is it one out of five,
20% of Americans. Now let me go ahead and tell you this. This shocked me. This shocked me so much. 20% of Americans, 1 out of every 5, suffer from a mental illness. Right. That is documented.
Right.
That is documented.
So that means that hundreds of people that are listening could either know or not know that they're suffering from something, or that there's something. Now, there's obviously
a big chance they don't know.
Degrees and variations to that, but one, it's important because the podcast, we care. It's not just about the whiskey,
right?
And if one person can hear a story or feel like they can hear that you had people that you went to and had a community, and the importance of that, and the importance of having a community, that we feel like it's important for us to share that if you have feelings of something's not right or something's off, that the Matt and the Grease, whatever, if he had not had people come to him, or him go to people, or have the courage, because it takes a lot of courage to seek help, these aren't things to play with. Like, these things can go very wrong, very dark, and very tragic. And that's important, that you have a story that you can tell, that maybe if one person hears, maybe I should talk to a friend. Mm-hmm. Maybe I should talk with my primary care doctor, that I just feel like something's off. We're not, Lord knows, we are not doctors or experts in something like this, but you have a story, and you have a history and things that hopefully this is important to someone, and hopefully one person hears this out of potentially hundreds that could hear this and have something positive come out of it. That's important, and that's leads to what you and your friends are also doing that coincides with we're putting this story out specifically because there's while this is one episode, 1 hour, y'all have been spending time doing something. I think it's special. I listened to the first episode of a little project y'all are working on that hopefully, even if it's just for yourselves, documenting.
That's what it started as.
But if there is something that I want you to tell people about that maybe if you hear this and you're like, I want to hear more about stories because maybe I related a little bit. What else they can do?
Yeah, I would say that during all of this and our bond and with the band and everything, it just came more apparent to me because I had the ability to say, hey, what do y'all think about this? Because and Joey too, like Joey produces podcasts and all of this stuff it's, a small nonprofit and stuff like that, but he does it and he does it well. And so I have this community of people that I literally want everything to be the best that absolutely can be. And I know for a fact people are struggling. I know I'm already I shared episode 0 of the new podcast, by the way. Sorry to lead into that. We started this podcast called the Heavy Mental Podcast. It's based around.
We can't get away from puns.
We can't.
Podcast.
We can't.
Heavy mental.
Shane actually came up with that. It was really great.
He's smarter than
Maybe
you
it was
are.
Joey.
Yeah.
Details are fuzzy.
Both are smarter than you are.
I know. And we started the Heavy Mental Podcast, and it started with, guys, I don't know what this is, but I love hanging out with you guys, and this is a great excuse to be on Zoom with each other for 2 to 3 hours.
Right.
And that's what we did. And, we did run the mics, we were recording it at times. And then we got, what we thought was 3-4 episodes in, and we just all were just like, this just doesn't feel right. It does not feel right. So we scrapped it all. And we were like, man, like, are we doing it? And we sat down. And we already had the commercial, the episode 0 that kind of promotes it and stuff. But when we sat down and we finished up episode 1, I felt it, and they did too. And I was hoping more than anything that the people that I shared that with would, that they wouldn't. I was hoping that they wouldn't say it was a train wreck. However, if they did, I would be okay with it. Mm-hmm. I'm confident enough now. I'm mentally, prepared more, conditioned more to receive that kind of stuff. But we have not heard one bad thing. Like, hey, throw a disclaimer in there. Like, hey, you're not doctors, no problem,
right?
Or hey, we also in the podcast we also jump in, I've pre-recorded something that we can put in front of things that are just heavier. Like, right. Hey, like if you guys have triggers or in dark times or anything dark related, I'm hoping that you understand what I say that, we interject in that so that conversation can be freely, but we protect, young ears or, people, that suffer from that. And the whole episode was just, it was great. I felt really good about it. I was, my story felt right. And two, I will say this, like, if you want to hear more about like what Will and I were discussing in more detail,
sure.
Definitely more polished. I didn't get up from a nap 30 minutes before Will got here, when I recorded that originally, but it's it goes into more depth, and it's really interesting hearing from another person suffering from bipolar and another person suffering from depression in those.
I think what for me listening to it, the two big takeaways, not about like the stories themselves, but what was unique about it was hearing you deal with a very serious, heavy topic in your life that I know how our conversations have been. You felt very like it sounded like you felt liberated because you were not talking, you were talking with another person that has a similar diagnosis. And I know you'd already had a lot of conversations with him.
Yeah.
But for you telling your story and talking about it, when you talk with me, I a lot of times feel like you're having to explain to me your story.
Yeah.
You were just telling your story to your friends.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very big difference. And I feel like even this, a lot of it was explaining tonight.
Yeah. If I'm being honest, I've lost my train of thought. I'm a little bit more all over the place.
That's totally it, but it's a delicate topic, and that's fine. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like the way you were telling your story, not explaining your story, is one that's novel to me. And I feel like listening to their stories as well. If it's something that you're interested in hearing in that format, I think it's very relatable in that way.
Yeah.
Especially if you have other, if that is something you're like, I don't know what's going on with me.
Yeah.
Two, hearing likewise Shane, the questions he would ask. You.
Yeah.
Because it came from a knowledge base that I don't have.
Yeah.
It's like the difference of the asking
well, you can't put a Hot Wheels guy with, a Hot Wheels collectible guy with, a G.I. Joe.
Right, because
guy.
the Hot Wheels
kind of know, but there's just not that.
Like it's almost like a
that was a really stupid example.
say like a whiskey guy and a car guy.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a whiskey guy and a car guy together.
You could be both.
The whiskey guy is going to ask the car guy, what kind of car is that? But two car guys together are going to be like, tell me about the engine.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was the difference, is that if in this conversation and ones we've had, I'm asking, what is that car? It's something I have a concept of a vehicle. But I'm not enriched in it. I don't have this deep knowledge base or understanding to ask about, the drive shaft or the transmission or something. Like if the way that Shane had an understanding and understood terms and even just related, that his questions were more thoughtful than I could ever bring to the table in something like that. Yeah. Not like I'm comparing us, but I'm just saying that's what makes that a different listen than here.
Oh, very fair. Yeah. I mean, you can go to heavymentalpodcast.com and it's going to have the platforms there and a way to, connect with us if you want, but we're pretty much on Google, Spotify, Apple, all those things.
And you're dropping
episode 1 could possibly, and I don't think so, be available as you listen to this.
But if you go, the episode 0 is there.
The episode
and
0
so
is
if you subscribe as soon as it is available, the first episode, which episode 0 does a really good job of introducing who the three of you are, and it's 2 minutes.
Yeah,
it's like it's like a trailer, but it does a really good job. The music here in the background is the instrumental version of the song y'all wrote.
Yeah.
So the first episode's coming out, and then the second episode is just the song. Right?
Song.
So that'll be coming. Are they dropping at the same time, or is
we are going to drop those at the same time? Okay. Yeah, I think 1 and 2 is going to come the same. Then it's an 8-episode season. We don't necessarily know if we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about after 8 episodes.
Sure.
but the amount of growth that we've accomplished and the perception, I could very well see that it continuing on. However, going through all of this stuff that I've gone through the past 2 years, I'm saying, like, guys, it's going to be like 8 episodes and then we're taking a break, and we're going to circle back when we have something to say.
Yeah.
Or we would just record them early and just sit on it.
Yeah.
The hustle and the drive to, oh dude, we're going to be in local newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
We're vulnerable. We're transparent. We're the only people that do that in the world. You know what I mean? Like that whole, like, I could have totally been down that rabbit hole, and everybody's just like, dude, this guy's off the rails.
You almost called yourself crazy.
I know. I do. I do that. I am. Shoot. What was that?
I derailed you.
Yeah,
you said that, then we're going to step back after 8 and just say,
yeah. So I think
the purpose of it, as you've explained, isn't necessarily to be like, this is what we do now.
Yes.
This is a part of y'all working through things that happens to have a way people can listen in on your conversations.
Yeah.
And maybe someone won't get to a spot where they haven't, talked to someone or gotten help because they hear that it's okay you're like 65 as a 65-year-old dude to have these real vulnerable conversations.
I still have color in my beard, dude.
I know. Was that a manic thing?
It's not complete.
The
beard?
When you
do you think okay?
When you look, no.
Let me go ahead and tell you something.
No,
look at me 2 years ago and look at my beard and tell me that freaking bipolar disorder didn't freaking run a daggum train on my face.
I don't mean it turning gray. I understand that part.
Oh,
I mean, was it a manic thing when you used your wife's box color and looked like a hobo?
I don't. Honestly, I
How about
don't
the
know.
Botox?
I should have journaled that.
The manic thing was
no, the Botox, dude. It's freaking solid. Like, look at that.
Oh man,
it's so good. I can raise my eyebrows without them being crazy. How about that?
All right,
dude. Once in a lifetime situation, guys.
So
are we gonna play the song? I thought you wanted to play the song.
Well, I didn't want to. I only wanted to play it if y'all had already released it.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So instead, go to heavymentalpodcast.com. Is that right?
That's right.
Heavy Mental, instead of heavy metal, it's heavymentalpodcast.com. Episode 2 will be the song. I love the song. I think it's great. I do like.
You haven't heard the mix. You haven't heard.
I was hoping it was you singing. Joey's great.
I think fanboy over me.
I think that when you sing it, I think that's what it's lacking. There's some negativity for you,
dude.
So, y'all screwed that one up.
So I did a single take of the lead vocal track for my kids.
Slayed it,
and Will was like, "Man, I just would love to hear your voice on this." And so I was like, okay, I'll send this to him. That was before I recorded it. So I was like, okay, I'll send this to him. This is stupid. Which, by the way, I sent Joey and Shane that version on accident. I didn't even listen to it. I got the mix. And he was like, here you go. And I was like, holy crap, he's already done? Forwarded it. And then I started listening to it. Because I didn't want to be like, whatever. And I listened to it and I'm like, and I quickly text him back, like, guys, sorry, this was for my kids. Like, stop. But yeah, I mean, it's fun. It was for my kids, but for some weird reason, Will prefers it. I definitely 100% do not, but I appreciate Will's love for me, and for my voice.
I'm typically right.
I actually did the harmonies on this and the bass guitar on this,
which no one can hear anyways. So.
You can, in the choruses. That's where I'm at. The choruses.
Yeah, all you bass players out there, irrelevant. So that's it. That's gonna do it for the podcast. Much more to come this year. More consistent, more stuff, different,
more transparency.
We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna do our thing. We're not going to feel beholden to the Fred Minnick agenda. I don't know what that means.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. I just kind of liked it. It's like,
dude, Fred put a blend that we did on the top 100.
I guarantee only because he didn't know that we had anything to do with it.
No, Fred likes me.
I doubt that.
We've hung out on like press things before, and at least he doesn't. He didn't not. I don't know. Fred, tell me, man. Like, just tell me now. Listening? I'm fragile, Fred.
Yeah.
Just tell me now. Do you like me?
Hey, go check that out. HeavyMentalPodcast.com. That's about it. But Greaves was referencing. We did the blend. You can actually watch on YouTube. It's with Neil Giraldo.
Yeah,
from 3 Chord. We went and did a blend with him.
Benatar's husband.
Yeah, and guitar player as well. And he's the man behind 3 Chord. And we went and did a blend. You can watch us do the blend. We Patrick did a really cool 3-minute version of us blending with him, and we made that blend, and it's under they have all these band series, and this one is Goodbye June is the band that is attached their name to it. But Fred put it in his top 100 for last year, and actually in the blind tasting, I think it was 46. It came in at 46.
Nice.
So
nice. That's pretty good.
So now if it had been the podcast blend, straight to jail. That's
do not pass go.
Yeah, right.
Asterisk.
Right. So thank you for thank you that Goodbye June.
It's probably because when we had him on, literally episode 5 or something like that.
It was maybe 2 was Bernie Lubbers.
2 was Bernie Lubbers.
It was really early though.
But I did mention that I was going to get a tattoo on my lower back of him or something.
No, I think that was the Bernie Lubbers episode. That you said I'm going to get.
I'm pretty sure I rehashed that joke for Fred too.
Yeah, you tried it a lot. All right, folks, thank you so much for listening, and go check out that Heavy Mental Podcast. No.
Heavy Mental. That's pretty good.
HeavyMentalPodcast.com.
Cast with a T.
Yeah.
God, we're going to have to start saying that now.
That's going to be weird. I can't say it. I can't do it.
I know that's
Check it out and give those guys a subscribe and leave a 5-star. Leave a 5-star, please.
Please leave a 5. Yeah, we've got a lot of reviews. The podcast does. So a 1-star doesn't really hurt.
Yeah.
But if we lead off with a 1,
done.
We're in trouble.
Yeah.
All
right. Thank you guys. And we don't know Jack.
Love you guys. We'll drink it.